Okay, I'm live. Yes, I see some people. Yes. Tell me if you can hear me. I hope you do. It's just a check. I would assume you hear me unless I see in the chat that there are problems. Okay, so let's start. Um, I first of all would like to welcome everybody. There's been a bit of break in my live streams and things. But hopefully from now on, it will be more regular again and we'll be going on. So any questions, please put them into the chat. Let me see, let me adjust the monitor a bit. I think I'll do it this way. Yeah. So any questions go into the chat, please. So far I have seen no questions, so I will start with some prepared ones. A little bit prepared, not prepared by me, but sent to me, not here, but by other means. And so one of these questions that I would like to start from would be, let's see. In practicing, I mean, first of all, practicing is important, right? So while practicing, we build certain habits, right? That's our goal. We're building good habits, listening to ourselves, developing good sound, obviously good intonation and so forth. So the question was, at what point does discipline in practice become harmful instead of helpful in musical practice? And hello. So discipline that is harmful rather than helpful. And number one is adhering to some rigid rules, I believe is harmful. More harmful rather than helpful. For instance, adhering to the matter of time. I will be practicing my scales for 1 hour. I would be practicing my scales for 10 minutes or whatever. So in other words, having a goal of time practice rather than achieving a success in what you're doing. That would be one of the harmful habits. Anything that becomes a dogmatic or becomes too stuck in itself. All right. So in most, I mean, with young violinists and myself, I've been there, it's practicing by time. We know like, oh, okay, so 10 minutes and you watch the clock sometimes and you mindlessly play whatever it is that you're playing. That becomes really harmful, especially later on. Yes. So I would always advise, and I do advise to my students, to always have a goal. You have to achieve certain goal in every little bit of practicing. The only time when little kids can maybe practice on time just because they have not organized their heads, but that's when they would be best if their teacher would write very precisely what they have to practice in such little, time slots that they have. Okay, so again, achieving goals would be the most important thing. Okay, let me see. What else? I mean, there's nothing to so far demonstrate with that. All right, another question that was sent to me earlier. How do you develop personal expression while still respecting the composer's intentions? And the kind of segue to this question, or even better, how to play with good taste. I mean, they're connected questions, I guess, but they're a little bit different. So, number one, what we do as performers is actually trying to guess what the composer wanted us to portray, what the composers wanted us to bring from no sound, like for instance it is right now, I'm talking, but there's no sound of this, right? So, but meanwhile, if I start playing, I look at what composer wrote for me note-wise, first of all, of course, right? Notes as part of that expression. Then I'm looking at his or her comments in music, markings, You know, there will be note values, there will be the key, and of course there will be things like crescendo, diminuendo, and then I try to decode why. Why did they write this? What did they try to say? What did they try to portray in this music? You see, so then we are really, we performers, it's not about us, really. First of all, that's one thing to remember. If you want it to be all about you, you need to be a composer and performer. And perform your own music. Then it's truly you. Then do whatever you like. But if you're playing somebody else's music, you are very secondary. I am very secondary when I perform. The composer is number one. His intentions or her intentions are number one. And I'm trying to decode them from the piece, from the page. Okay, so by all of these little signs in there, dots, dashes, crescendo, diminuendo, where does the phrase go to? Harmony. We will look at the harmonic line. What does he or she want to say? That's what we're trying to do. And that's the number one step. So if we are and when we are following that, forgetting about the precious I, that's actually when the I starts happening, paradoxically. But when we are all about me, oh, I would like to do this and that, becomes very often, what we would, in our older days, we would just say bad taste. Now we're iffy about saying things like bad taste, but, you know, it's not the intent of composer then. Okay, can you name the main reasons why classical music became rather fun-oriented and less sophisticated and honest? Well, I think the main reasons fun-oriented, well, because, well, I think we need to make sure that in which country we are. I think this question is mostly for where I am, which is United States, and perhaps the person who asked the questions also is here. And here it is really more rather fun oriented. It's because the whole society turned towards fun more and more and more. People were, I believe, in general, media, Instagram, attention span. Attention span is so short, so it's just like, oh. So I think it started being reflected in how the classical music is achieved. In classical music, you have to think, you have to go deep, you have to re-listen, you have to immerse yourself, which is not in what we do in social media at all. And there's a lot of social media. What started in 2000, whenever it started, the whole thing, 2005, 2003, whatever. So yeah, I think that's a big part of it. And well, it's easier. Well, why pop music is more popular than classical music? Well, because pop music doesn't require any participation of the um, prefrontal cortex and other cortexes. I mean, it's just like bum, 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 and we go and we're having fun. So classical music is music of thinking as well as feeling. So that it requires an effort. It requires a special type of listening that we develop. Not only as musicians, by the way, audiences should develop the particular type of listening to classical music participation. I saw the video about the control staccato, but it was only for up bow. How to do down bow? Oh, I see. All right. So the down bow staccato, yeah, we should have done it both ways, really. But up bow staccato is so much more used, and I believe it's more used because it's easier to achieve. The down bow staccato, the first when we start down bow staccato, it should be really both. So we start then from martelé. And we use the same principle basically. It feels differently when we go that way, I would say up bow to the left, or that way to the right. Especially it is so on G and D string, and actually even on A, it feels more to the left, to the right, than up and down. On E string, it's up and down, for sure. But anyway, so starting from that, then accelerating. The same function of index finger on both, which is kind of what we do in collé, but it's without without using the fingers in this case, because you're using the arm to move the bow, right? So in accelerating, so that would be the control type. Basically, you just, people need to practice it more. So another thing, however, that when down bow staccato is used very much equally with up bow staccato is a tight arm staccato, and I think we touched that in that video. I honestly don't remember, but it is the one when we tighten part of the arm here. You know, it becomes very fast one, and or we go down bow, and it's the same kind of thing. Okay, so that one doesn't really matter. I mean, one direction. Sorry, my bow is not tight. For tight arm, should be tighter. And you just change the direction. I don't know if it sounds really good. I don't have a special microphone right now or anything, it's just going into computer. But it is the same exactly movement up and down. Now with the first one that I was showing, it feels differently in the hand because of the direction of the bow is changed. Okay. Oh, hello, Lynn. How nice to see you from Maryland. Hi, it's been a long time. Okay. Hello, I have a question in regards to the left hand frame in higher positions. What should I look out for and what to avoid? I have a bad habit where my wrist moves with every drop of my finger. Yeah, that is, yeah, it could be an issue because on the fast tempo. So basically, okay, if I understand the question right, so if you're in a higher position, your wrist moves which way? This way? Kind of like that, or actually does something in between the fingers. So does it rotate more like this, or does something in for each finger going down? Could you clarify for me, please? Moves with every drop of the finger. Oh, hi, Ivan. It's nice to see you. So anyway, in the hand frame in upper positions, usually there's one, if I would say, rotate, okay, rotate, okay. So basically, it probably means, probably, I haven't seen you, but it probably means that you shift up, and while you're playing, you realize that you cannot really reach comfortably, and then it has to rotate. It's probably this. And that is actually what happens to most people when they have problem with frame. So basically, it's, you need to be shifting. You know what? The best thing to do is octaves. You know, you go from third position and somewhere, that one, the G or higher, if you need to be able to put the fourth finger comfortably. So not too far. That will be, for instance, you see, to go with the thumb over here is not a good idea, because we need to use the extension part in here as much as we can. Small hands will have less, of course, extensions, big hands bigger, fine. But it has to be comfortable. You need to use the stretch, but you also need to be absolutely comfortable on the fourth finger side. So go for octave. Now, if you don't play octaves, let's say, or they sound horrible, so what you could do is play one octave scale, right? In, or even four notes, actually. You can go to and adjust your hand to the A. Right now, this is A, right? The last note in the first E. So you adjust it here, find the most comfortable position. Then I would say go down and play at least one octave right there, keeping the same frame and memorizing how it feels, memorizing where the thumb is exactly. Mine, for instance, is here. I know how it feels. I know, and this is what our seventh position, right? The E is a seventh position. If you want to remember that, fine. So you go like this, and you go several times. Then you memorize. This is how it feels. That's when you will shift to it. You need to shift it to exactly that position. You can do it from no notes, no sound, from somewhere here, back to that feeling. Then check. Are you on A? Are you on A here? And adjust if necessary, then repeat. And until you get that position, and then actually it becomes an octave, you see, then you won't have that issue with shifting with fingers forward like this and then having to adjust. You will be shifting, I call it go around the violin, go around the violin body. Yeah, one of my teachers called it, you know, we all call it actually a window. There should be a window. Actually, the window should be there all the time, even in lower positions, but usually it's just right there. So when we go higher, that window that was there already kind of opens larger, becomes larger. Okay, you can think about that way. I usually for myself just think I go around the violin. I come out of the straight position into this one. Okay, so that will fix the frame situation. Okay, what are the red flags that stop you from accepting a certain student? Except the obvious ones. I don't know. Um, what the obvious ones would be. Well, first of all, okay, so I don't really teach the very little people, all right? I'm much better with already kind of the thinking ages, so age 13 and up, I would say, you know, or 14 and up. So then the red flags. Well, the red flag, for instance, number one would be somebody's playing violin for many, 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 many years and still plays it very, very, very poorly. Basically, doesn't play it by the age of 18. So there is a red flag. I don't know if I am not going to accept that student at all. I would probably give one trial lesson and see how they react. But basically, the red flag would be when the mind doesn't work and when the ear doesn't hear. But ear, as we know, is in the head. So ear is how our mind processes sounds. So the lack of musical hearing, of course, is a huge problem. And that's, yeah, that would be, in Russian, it was called professional, what is that? Professional, I forget how to translate it. But anyway, so you can be professionally just not suited for this profession. So if you don't have musical hearing, you can't do it. So that would be the first red flag, probably the obvious one. But then, yes, when the person maybe is, yeah, doesn't hear herself or himself. That's number one. Cannot process what I'm saying and cannot immediately follow my directions. That would be another one. Probably only, well, and or they're playing violin for a long time and they completely don't know anything else about music. Like they're just playing violin. They're just like moving fingers, and moving the bow. And that is secondary, actually. I mean, it is first thing that we learn usually because violin is just so hard to start. So yes, we at first learn movements and how to make a sound, whatever, but very quickly we need to be learning things about music itself and being interested in music. Otherwise, that would be a waste of time. Their time, the student time, and my time, of course. Yeah. Hello, Blaze. Okay, so let's see. So I think I answered the question about left hand frame. Let's see. Okay, so let me go back to the questions that were sent to me earlier. Meanwhile, I need to make sure that I don't drop anything here. Okay, let's see. So, a deep question. Before I will go to next one there, the deep question, what does success in music really mean to you beyond money or recognition? So if I take this this question truly personally, what it means to me, or is it a general question? I'm not sure. Success in music mainly means to basically anybody or an average musician, let's say, like not average in terms of average, but like all. statistically average musician, right? It will be, first of all, we have to determine, define what success is in this case. For some people, success is money. For some people, success is recognition. Let's say they are independently wealthy. They don't need money. They don't need to make money from their art. Um, and well, in that case, maybe for success for them would be fame or recognition. For most people, I think, and then here the question is beyond money or recognition. Well, satisfaction, then what I do, for instance, that I become better and better. I mean, I hear that I sound better and better. For some people, it would be winning competitions. And again, some people win competitions, I think, for the sheer joy of winning, which personally, like, I cannot relate to that because I never was inclined to competitions myself. But it's not to say that I discourage my students to do so if they are inclined to do so, and if they do well, then it also could be success. You know, somebody went out and won 5 competitions, and they're happy, and then I'm happy for them. Now, in terms of long-term goals, what that or this person wants, success would be what they define as success. Now, more typically, people mean success being both money and recognition, right? So, but in music, it's a tough thing to accomplish these days. Really tough. I don't know if I answered the question, but I tried. All right, let's see. Ivan is asking, how do you teach a student to play elegantly? Elegantly. Well, again, I think the first sign of elegance would be the understanding what elegance is. Elegant phrasing would, for me, would mean the endings of the phrases, beginnings and endings. And there's a technical way to understand them, and then there's just musical way to it. First, a person has to listen a lot to a lot of music. So, elegant playing, I will give examples to my student what I consider to be elegant playing. You know, it's a kind of again, what do we exactly define as elegance? I think right now in the context of music, right, it will be, yeah, beginning. For instance, if I start, okay, so what's the that was the beginning of Mozart Concerto Number 3. That is definitely not elegant, because attack is too harsh. I don't hear, I don't listen to the beginning or ending of the note. Then also like this. Now, if I do something that is much more elegant, I might want to for the same beginning. Just an example here only. Starting an up bow because it gives me a natural decay of sound. Um, Ending of the note, even if I don't start with, let's say I start nicely, but you see how the G ended? It did not release at all, it didn't breathe. Breathing is part of elegance. That would be more elegant way of phrasing. So yeah, so beginnings and endings, listening, it's still about listening. First, we hear somebody who is playing that manner, then we try our best to imitate it. Then we are working with our teacher on getting this, the matching of the sound that we know that we like to the sound that we hear we produce. Yeah, so that would be. Next question. Do you play jazz or pop gigs? No. But I did. I did not, well, jazz gig I only played once in my life, and I wasn't on the violin at that moment. Pop gigs I did play when I was quite a bit younger, and I was not in Texas yet. I was in Michigan. Then there were some big pop stars coming around, and I was playing. Yeah, you do sometimes fun things, right? Too. Next, how did you keep from developing blind spots in my playing, in your playing, and continue to improve, grow after you left school and had to fully be your own teacher? That is a very excellent, wonderful question. You know, I grew up still at the time when we didn't have easy access to recordings or self-recordings. We didn't have it then, but we started to have it. And so like it would be still a tape recorder, if you are familiar with what that is. So it were tapes, then they become CDs, became, and now of course we all have phones and we can record on our phones, which is a huge improvement. And so, but very early on, the moment I had access to a tape recorder, I started recording everything, like anything that I was playing or practicing. I would record and then listen to it, because you need an ear from outside. You actually need an ear from outside before you start figuring out, okay, oh, this is how I hear it here. Oh, that's how it comes out on the recorder, you know. Then you finally will start putting the equals marks, right? Oh, this means that, because what we hear here a lot of times, and not at all what is out there, we have our own perception of how we sound, and it's very often not exactly how we sound. So that's a big thing to learn, and that's the main thing to learn. That's what if one learns it during the time with a professor, you won't have any problems being without a professor, because well, you know, cliche stuff, but it's true. You are your own professor. If you hear how you sound, then you know what you want, and then you work on achieving it, and you constantly record yourself and listen back. Like, I want to sound like this. You have it in your mind, you have it in your ear. You record, oh my God, you go like, oh no, it doesn't sound anything like I wanted. What? You do it again, you improve, you do more crescendo, more diminuendo, I don't know, more release, less release, articulation, more articulation, and so on. That's how you do it. Yeah, that's the best way to do it. By the way, they say that that's exactly what David Oistrakh did, because he was without a teacher from young age. He didn't need one. Um, a lot of people, actually, as a matter of fact. I did, as I said, I did this. I was without a teacher. You know, last lesson, I mean, I graduated from everything by age of 25. After 25, I never had a teacher anymore. So, in blind spots, yeah, it's true. You know, I still want to add to this. You know, ballet people, ballet dancers have a wonderful tradition. They work with a coach, with a ballet coach, to the rest of their lives, performing lives. They go to class. They're being observed. Of course, they have so much more physicality of movements. They have the mirrors on all sides, right? So they can always check themselves, how the posture is, how their position is, and so on. But it's not enough, obviously, because there's always a coach. And with us, it's became like, it's never was, I guess, that way. And we're kind of on our own, and we're supposed to be on our own. I wish we would have this. You know, I know that my former students, some of my former students, kept appearing and playing for me way after they finished all schooling. And I believe that was very, very, very useful for them. And me, I couldn't do it. I was, you know, here, my schooling was all in Moscow, right? And I came to United States already after, and that's it. And I didn't know anybody here. But I would send recordings from my performances to my family and ask for feedback, of course. So by saying like I didn't have any more lessons, true, like formal lessons, but I did have feedback, because it's very important as well. So yeah, I wish we could do it easily here, because you know, sometimes I see some very famous musicians, won't mention names right now, but I saw that musician when they were still very young and not yet famous, and then they became more and more famous, and they become super famous, and I see them and I see problems creeping up and they're playing, but now they're superstars. And unless they ask me my opinion, I cannot come to them and say, hey, you know what, you're developing a problem here. I can see, you know, tension right there, or you're not using enough bow and it starts hurting your sound. Can't say that. And meanwhile, they progress down that road, and hopefully nothing happens to them in future. Anyway, okay, so next question. Do you feel that up bow staccato feels different in the lower half of the bow? Oh, yes, absolutely. It's easier in the upper half. Of course, absolutely, because uh, a staccato really should be played, a bow staccato should be played in the upper half. It's when we are only, sorry, when we are only using forearm too close. I mean, that looks horrible. I'm looking at myself on the camera and completely can't coordinate anything. So when we're only looking, when we're using the forearm, it's the easiest. And it's also the angle at which our wrist is to our hand. Now here, when we come to this, this is where I call it a breaking point between the staccato that, and here it wants to switch. For instance, in my case, it always wants to go faster. So in order to yeah, I have to use a different feel completely to continue in this tempo. Absolutely. Yeah. So advice, try not to cross that part, actually develop more and more in this part. But meanwhile, then once you're really, really, really proficient in here and you're really good in feeling and everything, then just tell yourself, oh, it will expand actually. It will move. That part will become closer and closer to the frog. And nobody really goes past this point of the bow when they do controlled, staccato that you're actually making in your hand and not the tight arm. Tight arm, you can go to the frog. There's no difference. Okay, so I watched your videos about the first finger and the left hand, and it really helped me. I still have some problems though while playing notes that require extension of the fourth finger and thirds. Yeah. Well, it depends, Okay, excuse me. I need to bring some water. I'll be right back. So, while playing notes that require extension of the fourth finger and thirds. Okay, so it's in thirds, right? Is that mostly in thirds, like when you have to do this? Depending on your hand, like my hand, for instance, okay, let me see. See, my hand, my fourth finger is like it's sloped like this, right? So fourth finger feels as short and it looks like it's short. It's because the hand is not just constructed that way, right? So yes, I have that issue. So I would go from the fourth, and then I would go from the third that is nice, small, which is a major third, and then I will orient myself onto the fourth finger. And again, a long time ago, I relearned. I was playing like this when I was little. See my fourth finger, like it caves in here, because by nature, I'm very hyper flexible in my joints, in some of the joints and the joints of the hands for sure. So this hyper flexibility is, it's good sometimes actually for some things, but it's not good for strength. So I played like that. I was not a happy camper, so I had to change and I had to learn to play properly, physiologically properly. So all the joints are out. So from that point, I don't want to go to this. And of course I can play third that way. And in fact, if I go to that one, let's see how far I can go down. Well, I can't have a unison here, you see. That's if I allow myself to go into this horrible position. Luckily, if you don't play things that Roman Kim plays, you don't need to do unisons between 4 and 2, you just need to do thirds. And thirds, I would orient myself on the fourth finger, then take a major third, easy one, and then pull my finger back like this, slide it back, while keeping my attention, the anchor is on the fourth. Another thing that I did when I was little, and I was dealing with all these issues with my joints and blah, blah, blah. I didn't know back then what it was called. I would just hold it here like this and, and not allow it to buckle down. And meanwhile, or I would sometimes do even like this to myself, be my own teacher. So that helps. That helps. And time, you will, it will be get better. Let me see. Next, thank you for your instructional content. This has been a big help to have a trustworthy resource to study from on YouTube. I can relay, well, yeah, I guess rely, right? On for free. Glad my former teacher, Faina. Oh, say hello to your former teacher, Faina. Faina Podolnaya, wonderful teacher in Oregon. Why Shevchik Opus 2 teaches staccato up and down whole bow? Well, because, because again, how would you say this? There are things that we should do, we ought to do if we want to grow and become consummate virtuoso violinists. Okay? If we want to aspire to be not only professionals, but virtuosic professionals, of course, then we learn all kinds, and we should learn all kinds of things. And we have to spend a lot of hours every day practicing, not because as I said earlier, not because the hours will make you this consummate violinist, but because in order to accomplish everything, it will take you huge number of hours to do. And during those hours, you will accomplish this and this and this and this. And it's really didactic method. In general, Shevchik was, first he wrote also, he was a wonderful pedagogue, as we know from literature. He had lots of students, and he was very methodical. And yeah, why not? Yeah, he spent a lot of time training people. So did, I believe, Bayo in his method, or Capet. I mean, there are many methods that would absolutely teach both down bow staccato and up bow staccato. But if you look practically, what you're going to use it in, you know, practically you would use up bow much, much, much more often than the down bow. If you play diniku hora staccato, well, yeah, then you need your down bow staccato. But that's more or less people use the tight arm, which is not what Shevchik is teaching there. But it is useful. Of course, it's useful. That's why he puts it there. Whether I would spend a lot of time doing it, it depends on what I want to achieve. Do I want to be a consummate violinist? Somebody who, Hilary Hahn, probably did it. What can I say? So let's see. Um, Congratulations to you and your student for winning Sphinx. So thank you very much. It just was very recent. Yes, Alette Williams, she won Junior Sphinx. Yes. Do you teach these kinds of students differently, or how do you know if the student is ready for such a huge step in their career? Well, no, first of all, I don't teach them differently. I teach them the same. What usually happens with students of this, I would say, sort, I guess, or caliber. Well, caliber is different. It's a sort, it's a type of a student that usually they progress much faster because for one reason or the other, they practice efficiently. They practice more efficiently. Why? Somebody perhaps explained it to them, and I did, or maybe a teacher before me did, depending on where I got them, in their journey upward, where they came to me. But basically, what happens practically, I mean, most teachers will explain how to practice, but a lot of teachers will not say, this is how you should practice. They would not say that sentence. You have a lesson and they will tell you, okay, in order to clean this spot, let's say double stops, you should play, I don't know. And you want to clean this, so you clean it like this. They show you in the lesson, you do it. And then they say, also, please make sure that you play separately without the other notes. Then you play the same thing, but putting the other notes there, but not sounding them. Then you play the other notes. Everything is on the on strings, but you only sound now the bottom voice. Then you connect them together. Then you check this and this. You do this one time in a lesson. The difference with this type of student and the other types of students, the more commonly known, is that these people just get it and do it. And they will not only do it on this particular spot, and they will do it until they learned it. And usually by next lesson, it's all learned because they interested in learning this as fast as possible, the best way possible. So then they come and this thing is fixed. Not only this, but later on in other pieces that use similar things and double stops, let's say, they would just automatically use this technique. That means that they learned a very important piece of practicing. Whereas more typical student that doesn't achieve things as easily, well, it's not easily, I mean, as soon, they forget. They just forget, and or they don't practice. And when they practice, they forget the steps. They just like, oh, I need to practice it. They will be repeating, 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 and not fixing anything. Yeah, that's a difference. But do I teach them differently? No. But I will have to return to the same thing with this the typical student, while with their faster achievers, I don't have to repeat stuff. It's just done. It's literally is done from one lesson to another. With like Alet, I don't have to repeat stuff. Almost never. Almost never. Unless it's a skill that needs to be developed for a long time. And then, yes, of course, we will return kind of to that idea. But most things are done from one lesson to another. And the other part of this question was, is student ready for such a huge step in their career? You know, not always I would think about the huge step in their career, but yeah, I do think about this, of course, because the winning of a competition, of certain sort of competition, may lead to sudden necessity to play recitals and concertos with orchestras. With smaller competitions, it usually doesn't lead to it. It's usually just winning money and feeling good about yourself that you won. But with bigger ones, yes, one has to enter when one is ready. It's true. Hello, Giselle. It's very nice to see you here. My young students, age 6+, are always very eager to play fast, but playing easily out of tune. What are the steps towards faster playing in tune? You know, the slow steps. I mean, I think I understand why they want to play fast, because the faster is exciting. Anything that moves faster attracts us, and young people are the same. Young children, yeah, the young children want to run, and not just to, like we see that in toddlers, right? They stop walking and just immediately want to run, be able to run. So you know what? I think there are pieces that kind of do dexterity, but they are very easily accessible pieces. I would concentrate on those pieces with those people. You know, the Jenkinson Dance of Elves, it's called, and it's really, I don't remember if I, that one. It gives an impression, even if you play it on the string, by the way. If forget about sautille, of course they won't have sautille, but if, so it gives an impression of faster moving thing, because the tiny bow, this was, it would be a good piece for them. But in terms of intonation, yeah, there is no shortcut. There is no shortcut. They cannot be playing fast before they play in tune. And then just have to accelerate in proportion to what their left hand and their ear can do. Especially with young people, it's really important to get them away from this harmful habit or desire first and habit. Let them listen to fast things. Enjoy listening to them, to fast pieces. Ask them to dance to those pieces. Ask them to conduct those pieces, to move really fast, to hop to the pieces when they're listening to them by on YouTube, but not play them, because it's a different thing. I would go that way. So can you please speak about Beethoven solfège? You mean solfège in terms of a large, good-sounding bow, like what I would call grand détaché, son fillet. Which one, please? Why do we call separate bow stroke détaché? Only the upper half of the bow. Why not the lower half? No, I mean, I would say détaché. Here's here. It's also détaché. I mean, détaché. Okay, so the history of détaché is the word. In French, détaché means detached, right? And so at first it was detached. It was meant to be actually, it was a slight separations in between the strokes. Later, in our usage right now, that at least in America, I know that some teachers in Europe still use détaché in that way, but very, very few. I think it's pretty much permeated every country, maybe most countries. In Russia, where I grew up, détaché was the connected. So very legato sound in between. That was considered to be détaché, good détaché. And yeah, so it is easier done in upper part of the bow. It's easier because again we are just doing it with a simpler movement with with forearm, not the upper arm. Upper arm here to playing in this part, we actually utilize both this one and that one, and it's a complex movement, and therefore it's just not very comfortable. But sometimes when we need to, yeah, we will be in the lower part of the bow doing the détaché, of course. What would you suggest to students who struggle with disturbing thoughts during performance, even if they have practiced well? Oh, you mean like you play something and then suddenly you have a thought that just by itself comes in your mind and sort of like, oh my gosh, what's next? Or, oh no, or that spot is coming up. Is that sort of thoughts? Or something of that sort? Is that a disturbing thought? Or, well, actually, I had a name myself when I think I was 12 or 13. I remember that was an awful experience, actually. I was playing Wieniawski Concerto, number 2, in the exam. So I would be graded for that exam. So it was very important. So I would play well. And before this, I played already like a scale and arpeggios and blah, 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 blah in my etudes. And now I'm playing Wieniawski Concerto. And right somewhere during my playing, suddenly I remembered that right when I was leaving my apartment, going for that exam, uh, uh, my neighbor's dog was killed. Was an accident. There was an accident. The dog was killed, and she was crying about this, and I heard it. And of course, I kind of put it out of my mind, and I went to my exam, and I didn't think about this at all. And I came there, and I was warming up and everything. And then on stage, as I'm playing Vinyasa Concerto, suddenly it just comes to my mind, oh my God, this dog has got killed. Can you imagine? That was terrible. What did I do? I stopped because I had no idea where I was even. Well, I knew I was on stage. I had no idea where in the piece I was. I mean, I knew that I was in the concerto. I had, I kind of heard myself playing the concerto. That was terrible. It was very scary too, to realize that a thing like that can happen. That's called an intrusive thought. That part, or just like suddenly thinking something unrelated to like what's next, what you're doing, it will be called an intrusive thought. And I think maybe that's what you mean. Um, if that's what you mean, then it's it's a it's a it's a basic mistake we make when we practice. We allow ourselves to practice and play for a long time without noticing that we are not paying attention exactly to what we're doing, what notes we're playing, where we are. We get very comfortable and just keep playing. For instance, I can be right now, I don't know, playing. Yeah, that would be Kreutzer etude, right? I can play this etude. I know it by memory since very early age. And as a matter of fact, I can play these notes and I can read a book at the same time. I would not pay any attention to what is going there because it became completely automatic. And meanwhile, I will be actually paying attention to what's happening in my book. Or, another example, I can probably watch a movie and while I'm playing my scales, that's another example. And you know, some people actually practice this way. They think it's practicing. It's, of course, not practicing. It's a waste of time, total. Because during the time when we are not paying attention to exactly what we're doing, all kinds of things can go wrong. All kinds of wrong habits can go together. Usually they do. But the worst thing of all is that the brain gets really accustomed, like, oh yeah, the music can go on. I kind of hear it. I know that it's going on. But meanwhile, I'm interested in something else, or I'm just going to sleep, I call it. They just got sleepy brain. And then on stage, the brain cannot really sleep very well because there's pressure, there's something, and suddenly a thought comes of out of vacuum. These kind of thoughts, they usually come out of vacuum. And the vacuum is because the brain did go away again, like it did so many times during practice. So if you're practicing and you find yourself suddenly thinking, like you're playing, and that's like, oh, did I turn off my, or did my laundry, is my laundry done? Or I don't know, did I hear a phone ringing in the other room? Or where is my phone? Whatever it might be, right? If you have that thought, it means that you probably played for about 3 to 5 minutes without at all paying attention to what you were doing. You're kind of hearing sounds. That would be the very dangerous moment. So that needs to be corrected right away in practice. You have to stay with it. You have to pay attention. You have to have a feedback. And if you're tired, just don't practice. Because then on stage, yes, that kind of any kind of disruption like that will completely shock you out of where you were or where you are, or we call it memory slips, and of course there aren't any memory slips. Um, yeah, well, and then you know what? Another thing, I mean, to read books, it's a very good idea to read books on the stage anxiety, on stage fright, and there are lots of books by now are written. Starting with the inner game of music at some point, very old book, and I'm sure there are many more since then that are written out about this. So I would study that if really disturbing thoughts continue. I would study it, study those books, and develop strategies uh, to get away from them. Not away from them, to deal with them rather, to deal with them. Um, I'm currently playing Preludium in Allegro by Kressler, and the spiccato is such a paradox to me there. I don't get the letting the bow bounce concept. Yeah, some people it's really hard. Some people kind of get it. You know, okay, so usually letting the bow bounce, is that how your teacher explains it? If it doesn't work, it means that they are not, these words which work for many people, they are not the good words for you, you know. So the bow bounces because the bow does this. Oops, it bounced in the wrong place. Okay. You know, basically you throw the bow down and it bounces. So the bow can bounce. We know that one, right? So then if many teachers, including like most people, most teachers in Moscow where I was, taught us to do off string from on string, you know, the concept of and let your bow bounce. And for some people it just doesn't work. So for there you go from this feel when you actually bounce in one spot and you really feel it because it will bounce. You reignite the bounce. It's like bouncing the ball. It's important not to be in this position. It's harder if you're much onto, but although you can still do it, it still will bounce. You know, it can bounce this way. It doesn't matter. As I said, you can hold it this way. It's actually really comfortable if you are on a fist, very loose fist, of course, and you just feel how it bounces. So that's the first thing to get there. Like, okay, it can do it. And then from that point to increase the amount of bow that and go from here. And right now I wouldn't worry about the sound at all. I would go for this bounce first, the feeling of bounce. And it might be that, of course, I don't know your music, how you play it all, but people many times play Preludium Allegro by Chrysler too early in their technical development. It's a really hard piece, actually. It's not an easy piece, and it for some reason got reputation of easy piece or easy enough, and it's not. So there are also double stops, and things. So I wouldn't play it. I wouldn't play it too early. All right, let's see next. What are your favorite, most inspiring musicians? People in oh, either people whose playing you just love or find especially interesting in some way. Favorite, most inspiring musicians. Um, well, it kind of changed during my life. I had different people, different inspiring musicians. So it depends, of course. Well, depends on a person. Obviously, for me, I remember being totally enamored of Heifetz when I was very, very little. Very little meaning 5. I was listening to that Mendelssohn concerto by Heifetz and on the Wings of Song. It was on the LP, on a long playing, yeah, vinyl. So, and I was listening to it all the time. So that was Heifetz. Then I grew up and realized that I don't like it at all. Not Heifetz playing in general, but it's particular that rendition. For a long time, back then, it was Isaac Stern for me. Then I graduated, so to speak, graduated from Isaac Stern and went to, so we're talking about earlier recordings, of course. I mean, that would be, I mean, I was in Russia back then, so um, I loved Kogan's playing. I absolutely, I mean, yeah, I adored Leonid Kogan. I adored my mother. My mother was a huge, huge influence on me because my mother, Zoria Shikhmurzaeva, whose name has nothing to do with mine, she was practicing here and playing, and she was a soloist. She's a wonderful, wonderful musician and a violinist. And so hearing her tone, it was just completely unbelievable, beautiful beauty of tone. So she was definitely a big inspiration to me, and just the way of how she treated music, and she was a great musician. So that was definitely also. Um, then it would be Chrysler, and more like in the tradition of Chrysler, because back then we didn't have too many recordings yet available of Chrysler. Um, I, well, Milstein sharing in certain pieces, Misha Elman, his sound, and it was Miron Polyakin, was such a Russian, older Russian. Again, that was the Glazunov concerto, and back then I really loved it. There were several outstanding Russian violinists that are not known. My own teacher, Igor Bezrodny, was a huge influence on me too. And he had this impeccable taste. By the way, if you haven't heard Igor Bezrodny playing Rachmaninoff Romance on YouTube, you lost a lot. Listen to him. It's just unbelievable playing. Heart, soul, technique, anything. It's an old recording, so it's you have to give it some leeway for the recording itself, but it's live performance. It's just amazing. Um, then Vengerov became, in some things that Vengerov played, Vengerov, he's known here as a Vengerov. Then, of course, my love was Yosef Hasid, who unfortunately died so young. So he was a huge inspiration for me and my brother as well. Um, and on and goes. And on and on it goes. I would omit the current, maybe, current people, to a lot of people, a lot of good musicians. And yeah, so yeah. Okay, let's go back to Sonfia. Sonfia is a super slow. Oh, super slow. Oh, that one, Sophia. Yeah. Right. So the super slow bow stroke, it's an exercise stroke. the question is about solfege is that exercise stroke. It's when we should try to go with the bow again. I'll just take that note. And I don't know if you can even hear it because it's so slow. The sound should not be interrupted. So if I were to show it, that way, it's soft, but it's way too loud. And I'm spinning the bow, obviously. So you want to spin as little bow as possible, but before it starts before it interrupts because of the arm moving so slowly. So it is a skill, first of all. So perhaps from that exercise, yes, and to get to 60 seconds on one bow is really, really, really hard. So you start from achieving 40 seconds, and some people can achieve it easily, and most not. And then you build from each second from 40 seconds. It's harder, and after 50 seconds per one bow, down bow, then up bow, and playing a scale like that. But again, how much time you have, it depends on how much time you have every day. But yes, I would definitely, I don't recommend it for young musicians, for young players. It has to be only starting at a certain time of a certain age, certain experience of playing only, because otherwise it's ridiculous. It's not going to happen. But for more accomplished people, professional or pre-professional, yeah, it's very good exercise. Yeah. So what was the question? The previous question about solfege, I forgot. Oh, benefits of solfege. Yeah. Well, the benefit is that you can play um, you can have so-called long bows. Then you develop the long bow, so you can do things in very slow tempo. You can put many notes there. You can do crescendo, diminuendo, where other people run out of bow and you don't, because you learned how different fibers, from muscles here, they talk to these muscles, and it's all in a very slow motion. So it's extreme control. It's utter control. Let's see. Enigma variations by Elgar has some extremely fast passages. Are these achievable or just for sound effect? These days everything is achievable. The question is again whether Elgar thought of them like that or not. That would be a good question, huh? So I think a lot of very, very, very fast, like, there are passages in Shostakovich's symphony, somewhere very high up. They are definitely for a sound effect, because group of violinists playing really in tune in super high positions, it's really not really possible, and it wasn't for that reason that they would be written. In Elgar, well, I would say try your best. Then we'll see. Why is it so much easier to achieve flexible fingers on the right hand compared to flexible on the right hand compared to a flexible right hand wrist? Although I am applying your paintbrush method. Well, actually, the flexible fingers. You see, I mean, here the problem may be that when we're doing this movement, okay, so this movement is a wrist movement, all right? What I'm doing right now, I am bending the wrist this way, I'm bending and returning it to, okay, this is a drooping position. Let's call it the drooping position. Well, drooping of the wrist, right? So nothing is happening here. So then I will uh, flip my wrist, so to speak, right? And this way. So right now, fingers move. Well, they look like they move, but they don't move. I mean, it's a reciprocal movement. I don't make that movement. It's just naturally they change places, right? Uh, in the space. Okay, so a little bit of that movement is here now. Watch, here, yes, this is the same thing, only tiny bit. Instead of that much, I'm just doing a little bit. Yeah, do you see fingers move? Not really, like very little movement is visible there. Now, if I put something that is not movable, like a stick, and I will do exactly the same thing, Now you suddenly see my fingers move more, right? Well, because I mean, the fourth is sort of, it's here, you didn't see this so much. And here now it's kind of bending against the stick. Do I move them? I don't move them, but they look like they move, right? And if you look from that part, it just looks like I'm doing something with the fingers. Now, fingers also are smart people, so to speak. They are on the bow and they feel that stick. And so when I'm doing this, like, oh, yeah, 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 we feel something is happening and they want to help. They start with, like, oh, it's like this. That is a problem. So if somebody does this, I call it amplification movement of the fingers, and fingers should not be really moving if you're after bow changes. Okay, we're not talking about collet right now. We're not talking about something that we use fingers for some reason, but here just for changes of changes, bow changes, we want these fingers to be very relaxed, pretty much not doing anything. They're just reciprocally moving with the wrist. That's it. But a lot of times from visual, like teacher shows or somebody shows, you see, oh, the fingers are moving, they're doing something, and we start doing this, and that's a mistake. And that's maybe then the wrist actually doesn't move. I can do it without any wrist movement, but that's a problem because it's not the genuine thing. We need to come from here. Okay. Okay, let me see. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Arsenti, for putting the Bezrodny link. It's a semi-pro violinist. How do you deal with a burnout from practicing audition excerpts to get into an orchestra, but later lack the motivation to practice full symphonies? Diminished interests. But later lack the motivation to practice full symphonies. Well, I don't know, honestly. I would have a motivation to practice the full symphony if I'm playing somewhere because I want to play everything well. I mean, of course, I don't exactly maybe understand that semi-pro violinist. Maybe you're playing in the orchestra that doesn't meet every week, but like 6 cycles per year. Is that what it is? Maybe. I don't know. Actually, I would say, it's an interesting question because I would not, personally, I would never lack the motivation to practice the thing because I don't want to do injustice to my part, honestly. I mean, I remember playing in orchestras. I mean, I didn't play in orchestras that much, honestly. I was playing with orchestras, like, I would be doing concertos. But I did play in orchestra enough, I think, to say that, I mean, of course, through the schooling, I played in orchestras. And later on, I played in a local symphony because I was invited to play there. They really desperately needed me, and so I said fine. And for several years, I was participating. It was like that, not many concerts a year, um, and I did those. And material was all new to me, um, so I just didn't want to um, didn't want to do a poor job. So I practiced. I remember the hardest part for me was, especially if I were a principal second, and I was in the principal second, I was assistant concertmaster, concertmaster. Well, concertmasters are obviously you practice everything, you have to lead everybody, yes. But the other parts also, I remember the hardest part was like when you have lots of rests and then you have like some notes here and there, and that's a concentration that needs to be there. So I even practiced that at home because I realized that I get very distracted in the in the orchestra, and I would pay attention to like, oh, flute is playing. Oh my God, oh my, I have to enter. I have to get the whole group to enter also. So I practice that stuff at home. Yes, But on the other hand, I understand the burnout. But that's kind of a bit separate, I think, issue, maybe. Um, Carlos, I just wanted to thank you. You helped me to learn the basics with your videos and pandemic. Oh, I stopped practicing, but I'll set up time to start again. All right. I'm glad to see that. I'm glad it makes a difference. Would it be considered musically incorrect when playing certain pieces to use as many open strings as possible versus fingered notes? i.e. the timbre is different when an open string. Um, would it be considered musically incorrect? It really depends on the context. Like yes or no here, I cannot tell you, of course. It's completely depends on the context. I know that in the orchestra, most conductors do not like open strings because they, I mean, well, orchestral musicians habitually avoid open strings because, yes, the open string has very different sound. Again, E especially for us, E is very, like, we say tin can, a tin sound. So D and G, however, we cannot replace the G at all, right? The G is open no matter what we do. So the D is much more forgiving. A is also a lot of times forgiving, and it can blend really well. So sometimes, but again, the orchestra probably A, they will also cover A and E mostly. Soloistically, I would use open strings, but as much as possible, it again depends on the context, truly. If you give me an example of something, if I know what it is, I might be able to tell you more precisely. Oh, thank you again, Arsenty Zoria Shikhmurzaeva. Link, that's my mother. Yeah, we have some of her on YouTube. There is some recordings of her on YouTube. Not much. She was not, unfortunately, well, like I should say that. I mean, she was not allowed, I guess, to do many recordings. She was not scheduled by then Soviet government to do many recordings, so not much of her, unfortunately, is left. Okay, hi, Professor Bushkova. I have difficulty with vibrating in the first position on a G string, especially the first finger. I haven't been able to diagnose it myself, and it feels like I've tried everything. So the first finger on G string, that would be like this. Well, the usual thing, of course, you probably already know that, but the usual thing is that maybe, let me see, if my elbow is not enough helping me, that might be a problem. If I basically, the usual thing is a clamp. Usual problem with vibrato is clamping, or pressing too hard, or pressing it too hard with the tip of the finger. And G string, well, I mean, then actually, if you press too hard, then on every string it would be kind of bad. But on G string specifically, you need to have, first of all, if you're playing like this normally, you touch, you need to come off slightly, of course. That needs to be. So basically, position should be closer to Hadalic. Augustin Hadalic. You know how he plays. He plays all together. He never touches here at all. He plays like this in the first position, which I cannot do at all. Well, I mean, I could in some situations I would do it, but regularly speaking, I wouldn't be able to play like that comfortably. But he plays like that, and it's very comfortable for him. And it's certainly what we do when we vibrate. We come off this here. So maybe because there's a neck and you're not coming off, and it's sufficiently enough. So you can swing the thumb more under the violin and then try it that way. See how you do it in third or fourth position, and if that sounds better and if it works better, move that sensation to the first one. Yeah. Let's see. So that is diagnose myself. Okay, so I hope that helps. I mean, I really kind of need to see how it looks. Evan is asking, I'm about to have surgery in my left hand. Oh, and I'm wondering if you have ever had to go through this kind of recovery, or how you rebuild back. Oh my goodness, I feel very, I mean, I'm sorry that you have to do it. I honestly don't know. No, I have not had surgeries on my hands. I, I feel a lot of compassion towards you. I think the best thing would be to connect to people who did have surgeries, musicians, and I don't know where you're located. We have here music doctors. They're affiliated with UNT. I think they're called UNT Health, And Dr. Lee is a wonderful doctor, and she was, I guess, a violinist before she became a doctor, and specifically went to be the doctor for musicians, for hands. Her name is Ye-In Lee, Dr. Ye-In Lee. It's spelled Y-E-I-N, Y-E-I-N, Lee, L-E-E. You probably can Google her up and maybe write her an email through UNT system and ask. Maybe she can give you recommendations, if even if you're not in this area, but just to connect you with some people who have had surgeries, musicians who have had surgeries. And I don't know how it works in in the privacy laws these days, but yeah, it's a very good question. But unfortunately, I don't know. Definitely occupational therapy. You will need good occupational therapy, not just physical therapy, but occupational therapy. So ask your surgeon's office about that for musicians. At which height should the first finger touch the side of the fingerboard for better placement of the fingers? You mean here? It's very specific to the hand. For instance, I have a lot of length, so I tend to touch on I touch here on the G string and about there on the E string. So mine has to slide down, because if I don't, it becomes like totally crooked. Yeah, so I think about the vibrato, we should not let the first finger to bend onto the fingerboard. First finger to bend under the fingerboard? Oh, you mean like this? Is that what you mean? Bend under the fingerboard? I mean, honestly, I think anything is good if you hear vibrato sound. There are many ways to do it, and there are very many hands and many people. And so if the vibrato sounds good, do it that way. If it doesn't, experiment. I wouldn't say that there are rules like do that, do not do that. If it works, do it. Karim, hello. Nice to see you. How do you work on intonation in any passage? Slowly. The first thing, you need to slowly in a very, very few notes. So if you play a passage, you heard something is out of tune, play it again and see and hear how many notes out of tune you have. Record yourself, hear it again, slow it down a little bit, but not too much, and restrict the number of notes to maximum, I would say 6, because you want to fix no more than 2 notes that are out of tune, and better even to fix just 1 at a time, because you need to hear it, you need to so I play like that. I hear, well, I guess something maybe is out of tune. Now I hear that G sharp is flat. Then I will go, I go and fix it first. I choose the where I think it's good. If you have a good tuner, but there you should be very careful, because you cannot use like generic setting on a tuner. Not at all. It cannot be well tempered whatsoever. Only Pythagorean. But yeah, better without tuner. Better going from something in the, sorry, I have a table here. So G A. So I chose this sound as the one that I think is good. Then I will go to it from the different note, and I will repeat it several times so that I can arrive on a clean note. And then I will add the notes, still in slow tempo, and every time I put the second finger, I will direct it exactly to what I just memorized. So you remember one thing, technique is memory. You memorize stuff all the time. Therefore, why slow tempo? Well, you have to figure out what's out of tune, correct it, and then memorize it, how you arrive to it, how you arrive to it. And you do it at least, when you get a good result, you need to repeat it at least 3 times, one after another. But not ta-ra, 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 slowly. Ta-tam, break. Again, ta-tam. Good? Okay, that's your second time. Third time. Ta-tam. If the third time is not good, start all over. In professional world, we go, of course, 5 times at least, and then 7 times at least. Some people go 10 times at least, but that way, not da 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 da, not like that. That's useless. That doesn't give any results. So yeah. Okay. Learning a new piece. Somebody. Oh, it's the same person who asked me about this. I guess I missed that one. You know, I must tell you that soon I'll have to stop. What time? Oh, yes, I'm over time actually. All right, I would 4 more minutes and I will have to sign off. How do you approach learning a new piece? From the score first. Like if it's a sonata, if anything is more than violin is involved, like piano or orchestra, from the score, listen to this music with the score in your hands. Listen to several performers, not one. Follow with the music. Follow what is playing, what is going on, what impression it leaves on you. Make markings, put those in your violin part, which instruments play, or what the piano is playing here, themes, things like that. So musical analysis, that's number one. Then you proceed to um, your own part, and then you start. I would read first, read through. Um, you have to get your sight reading skills up if you haven't gotten those yet very well. So yeah, reading through, then concentrating. Okay, all right, this is easy. I understand what's going on in there. I will attend to this later. You go to the hard parts, start deconstructing them slowly. Intonation would be probably the first thing that you will attend to. Yeah. So, and then everything else. Um, so intonation I already answered. Not a question, but also wanted to thank you for making all this content available. Not all beginner. It has been very helpful. I'm very glad. Good. Um, Excellent content. Thank you. Do you have a favorite violin concerto? Oh, isn't that a little hint in here? Um, I probably, well, not one violin concerto. I mean, I have different concerti that I love for certain things. Like the favorite violin, if I had to choose one, it would be Sibelius, I think. Well, no. I mean, it will be Sibelius for sure, but I don't know if I can just live with only Sibelius. I mean, it'll be several of them. Glazunov will be one of them, and Brahms will be another one of them. And I love Prokofiev concerto, especially the first one. I love the first one. Um, I mean, Mendelssohn I used to love absolutely, as I said before, but by now it's so overplayed by all the students. It's kind of harder. Elgar is a wonderful concerto. My husband wrote a beautiful concerto for me. So that's definitely one of my favorite concerti now. So, yep. Any interesting or unknown repertoire you can share that you like? Well, I mean, that would be interesting or unknown repertoire that I like. I mean, Haritonov's violin concerto will be definitely one of them. Also, his piano concerto will definitely be one of them. And I'm telling you, it's such a great music. It's great music. And I'm talking as a professional right now, and not related to. Yeah, so definitely that. The Khan sonatas, uh, I recorded them. We recorded them at some point. Wonderful music. I would definitely recommend listening to it. Not because, again, there are more recordings now. We were the first recording, though. We were the first recording. We were the what's it called, trailblazers. So we had absolutely no examples of how do they play it. None. That was fantastic. You know, that is like the best experiences of one's life, is when you perform music nobody recorded. Or when you record, especially nowadays, you record the music, no recordings exist. You cannot get anybody's ideas. You completely come from the score. So that would be definitely that. That was for us, for me as well. So the other repertoire, you know what? Yes, I'm a little bit blanking out. I'm tired. Oh, you see, my 5 minutes are up. That's why I'm tired. It's been a long day. So you know what? I can put it in. Um, I can probably put it somewhere under maybe this stream. Some more music that I would recommend. They're less known people, less known composers. Yeah, I'll do that. Okay. Um, well, you're very welcome. Very welcome. So I was very glad to be back. I am very glad to be back, and I'll bid you all good night or good morning, depending on where you are. And Germany, thank you for being here. Oh my goodness, that is late or early in Germany. Greece. Okay. Good night. Thank you.